Good morning. Welcome to church. It's good to see you in your pajama pants. I'm glad you're here, and I hope you've already had a great time in worship with your family or friends or yourself, whoever you're there with this morning. And grab your Bible and open up to John chapter 18. Remember, we are walking with Jesus to the cross in John's gospel, in his passion narrative. And today we're going to take a look at this familiar story, Jesus in front of Pontius Pilate. What do you do when truth is placed in front of you? As rational people, you and I probably think, well, if I see truth, I embrace it. I want the truth in my life, and so if I see a true thing, I'm a reasonable person. I gladly accept that. But I know that's not the case. When I've thought about this question, I sit back and think about truth statements put in front of me. Sometimes it takes me a while to get there. One example, common to all of us here, is the coronavirus. So when I first heard about it, maybe like you, I thought, man, that sounds bad, but it's an ocean away. It's not going to impact my life in any way. And then as it crept closer and closer, I heard people say, no, this is going to impact your life. And I still thought, no, it's not going to impact my life. That just happens in California or on the West Coast somewhere. And then it landed. And I realized the truth of the thing, that it's going to impact my life and impact our lives. The truth was there the whole time. I just had to stumble into it. It took me a while to get there. And that's the way it is for us in so many things. Truth is there. It's hard for us to get to it at times. The same is true of the truth of Jesus Christ. When we are presented with the truth about Jesus, and then subsequently the truth about ourselves, we may struggle to accept it. Now, as John takes us to the cross, he gives us the story of a man named Pontius Pilate, a man you're probably familiar with. And Pontius Pilate has a struggle with the truth in John 18 and 19. Now, who was Pilate? Well, Pilate was a Roman military leader. He was a Rome-appointed governor over the region around the city of Jerusalem. And he was present in Jerusalem on this particular day with his army in order to keep the peace during the Passover holiday season. The Roman government held tightly to the death penalty. They didn't just let anyone implement the death penalty. And so that's why the Jewish authorities bring Jesus to Pilate on this day. He was arrested in the garden. He's gone through sham trials with Jewish religious authorities. And in order to kill him, they need a green light from Pilate. And so that's why we have Jesus with the mob at Pilate's courtyard, starting in John chapter 18, verse 28. Pilate gets a private audience with Jesus in this moment. And during this relatively brief time in the passage that we're going to read, Pilate undergoes some really dramatic changes in his relationship to the truth. John gives us this story so that we would see what Pilate sees and hear what Pilate hears and do what Pilate did not do. Pilate did not believe. John wants us to see and hear and believe the truth. So I want you to read our passage. It's kind of a long passage. I'm not going to read it to you. It's John chapter 18, starting in verse 28. All the way to chapter 19, verse 16. So once you hit pause and read the passage, and then when you get done, hit play, and I'll meet you back here. Good job reading. It's a long passage, I know, but it's important for us to see all the changes that take place in Pilate. In this story, when he's presented with the truth about Jesus, Pilate shows us three negative ways that we might respond to this truth. I'm not saying these are all the ways, but there are three very distinct negative ways that Pilate responds to the truth of Jesus. And that's what we want to look at this morning. The first way he teaches us not to respond to the truth is Pilate is apathetic to the truth. Now, this story opens with the Jews dragging Jesus to Pilate's house, the place where he's staying. And it's not really a house, like he doesn't have a permanent residence there. But it's so interesting, whenever they get to the place where Pilate is staying, the Jewish authorities, they say, hey, don't go into the courtyard or we will be ceremonially unclean, not able to eat Passover. I mean, there's such blatant hypocrisy on display here. They're accusing an innocent man of crimes against the state. They're going to murder this man, but they don't want to be ceremonially unclean. It just baffles me. So Pilate begins by asking this Jewish mob, what do you want? What are you here for? What charges do you bring against this man? And their response is just ridiculous. They essentially say, well, if he wasn't a criminal, why would we bring him to you? We wouldn't just bring anyone to you. This guy obviously has done wrong things. And what has he done? Well, they accuse him essentially of treason against Caesar, treason against Rome, and the fact that he has called himself a king. So Pilate then turns his attention from the Jews to Jesus, and he's face to face with Jesus, and he asks him, are you a king? Jesus answers in verse 36. He says, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight so that I wouldn't be handed over to the Jews. And Pilate replies, oh, so you are a king then? And Jesus says, hey, you speak the truth. You say that I'm a king. I was born for this, and I have come into the world for this, to testify to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice. And Pilate replied, what is truth? There's our big question. What is truth? Pilate is not a truth seeker. He's a truth dismisser. There is apathy in this question he asks to Jesus. It's a rhetorical question. He's not dialoguing with Jesus. He's saying this as a definitive statement, although it's in the form of a question. What is truth? As if there's no truth to be found. He has sought it out. He has sorted through all of these things, and he has an answer. He's not seeking the truth, but he's dismissing it. And what is he dismissing? He is dismissing the one who is standing in front of him. He is face to face with Jesus, who is the way, the truth, and the life. This is God in the flesh. And Pilate is outright dismissing this. He's dismissing the fact that this one in front of him is his only hope. But Pilate doesn't hear any of that. He doesn't hear the voice of truth. He doesn't belong to Jesus. Now, when it comes to truth, it's easy for you and I to be apathetic. When the truth statements about Jesus are put right in front of us, it tells us something about him, something about us. It's saying that he is God, he is holy, he is right, he is the way of salvation, he's the true one. And in turn, we're saying something about ourselves. I'm not any of those things, and I can't be those things on my own. I need help. So it's easy to be apathetic. When we look at suffering around us, we look at pain in the world, we think about our own experiences. There might be things that we look at and we say, how can anything be true when this is the state of the world? But we run a great risk whenever we deny truth. We run a terrifying risk. I mean, just think about it. If I deny the truth that a hot stove is hot and I touch that stove, there's going to be consequences, right? If I deny the truth that seltzer is disgusting, I might drink seltzer, right? What a horrible thing. You probably thought I wouldn't say any of that during this, but you get your seltzer in. So look, the bottom line is when we deny truth, there's consequences. There's pain that comes from that. There's a blast radius. And to be apathetic to the truth about Jesus, it doesn't leave us in a place of just total indifference or inoculation. It comes with really serious consequences. It comes with all kinds of difficulties, in fact. Pilate doesn't do us any favors here. He doesn't show us how to be intellectually fair. He doesn't show us how to really assess the life that we live or the world around us. He shows us apathy and all of its horrors. That's not all he teaches us. He's quite an effective teacher when it comes to truth matters, because from here, his encounter with Jesus face to face, the next lesson he teaches us is that sometimes we will deny truth in order to appease truth deniers. He sets himself on a trajectory to appease the mob in front of him. And so from talking to Jesus, he turns his attention back to the mob. And he's trying to find a way to get out of killing Jesus, even this early in the story. He knows what the mob wants. He knows what he does not want to do. And so in an act of Passover clemency, he asks the mob, who do you want me to release to you, Jesus or Barabbas? And they choose Barabbas. He's an insurrectionist. He's a borderline religious terrorist. He's not a good guy. They take Barabbas over Jesus. And then the mob's still not satisfied. They don't just want Jesus imprisoned, they want him killed. And so then Pilate orders Jesus to be whipped. Now, the way John tells the story, I take him to be showing us that the whipping of Jesus, brutal as it is, was intended to be an act of mercy from Pilate. What I mean by that is Pilate is hoping that when he presents the brutalized Jesus to the mob, that they will relent. They'll say, okay, this is enough. Yeah, he's been beaten. We're satisfied. You don't have to kill him. So Jesus is beaten, mutilated, brutalized, mocked, a purple robe placed on him, a crown of thorns on his head, in this sort of macabre scene where he's made to be a joke king. But it's not enough for the mob. They still want him dead. You see, what Pilate's doing here is he's trying to appease the mob and also hold on to some bit of the truth of Jesus. He's trying to make things good for Jesus without just inciting a total riot from the people that are there. He's trying to live in both worlds, and he can't. He's got to be one or the other. He's got to be all in on Jesus or all out on Jesus. There's no half measures when it comes to your life and your relationship with the truth. And this is what it looks like for so many of us whenever we're presented with the truth of Jesus. We immediately hear echoes of the world around us hurling accusations towards Jesus. This is intolerant. This is actually hate-filled. This is not loving or kind. How could you be this kind of person? This is not modern thinking. And it's in that sort of environment that so many of us treat the truth like a buffet. And we'll take a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and in the end, we just blur together this whole mixture of falsehood. It might have an appearance of truth. It might satisfy our conscience for a bit, but it's not the truth about Jesus. We cannot blend an unbelieving world with the truth of Jesus. We are here to be rescued from all of these lies and all of this hardship. So it can be a scary thing to say Jesus is Lord. At that statement, every other little Lord is removed from their thrones, and your whole life is bowed to Jesus. Now, the Christian's posture at that point is not to embrace Jesus and go to war against the world. The disciple of Jesus, just like Jesus, lays down his or her life to love those on the outside, to tell them of Jesus, to point them towards life in him. But when we try to appease truth deniers, we can't do that, can't fulfill that mission. In Pilate, we see what it means to be apathetic to the truth. He shows us what it means to try and appease truth deniers. It's going to fail every time. And the last thing he teaches us, he shows us what it means to be afraid of the cost. Pilate is afraid of what walking with Jesus might cost him. Here's what I mean. After he's had this interaction with the crowd where Jesus has been brutalized, he presents him to the crowd again. Behold the man, here is the man. They still cry out, crucify him, because he said he is a son of God. And that line right there throws Pilate into a tailspin. Look at verse 8 with me. When Pilate heard this statement, he was more afraid than ever. What a change from when we first met Pilate to where we are now. When we first meet him, he stands face to face with Jesus, just a weak peasant, not afraid of anything. He's in total control of the situation. But now, with Jesus in view, wearing the cape and the crown, drenched in blood and mutilated, he is more afraid than ever. And why? It's not because he's a religious man. It's because he's a superstitious man. And if he does something bad to a son of the gods, then perhaps the gods would do bad on him as well. He has a sense of what's right in this situation. He finds no charge against Jesus. Jesus is innocent of everything they've said about him, but he's afraid of the cost. If he exonerates Jesus, if he sets him free, there's going to be a price to pay, and he doesn't want to pay that price. To follow Jesus or to allow Jesus to continue to live is going to cost him dearly, and he's not willing to do that. Now, I'm not trying to set this up as if he's got a choice between salvation and not salvation. That's not what Pilate is entertaining at all. Pilate's just considering what's going to be most expedient, most pragmatic, get him the least amount of trouble. But he is obviously in turmoil about this situation. Now, Jesus somewhat soothes his conscience. He tells him, look, this is not you. My Father on high has orchestrated this. He's planned it. You have no authority but that which is given to you. And the greater sin is on those who have accused me, who have brought me to you. And so Pilate tries to find a way to release him, and it doesn't work, and he gives the order to kill him. Now, it happens in many of our lives, and in the lives of people we know and love, it happens that we reject the truth in such a way that we just kill its presence in our lives. We do away with it outright, totally. And when we study Pilate, it's important that you and I remember we're not studying someone other than ourselves. All of us have Pilate hearts inside. We all start out with a Pilate type of rebellion, a murder of the truth, an embrace of our own self-identity, self-idolatry. We do all of those things at the expense of God. And I don't know about you, I remember when I first considered the truth of the gospel, I was afraid of the cost. I was concerned about what it would require of me. I wasn't sure what it was going to take from me. But then once I saw Jesus on the cross and heard the story of the empty tomb, everything changed. And that's how it is for you as well. We don't have to be afraid of what it's going to cost us to follow Jesus, because we lose our sin and we gain life everlasting. We gain everything in him. And so here's what Pilate teaches us this morning. He says, when it comes to the truth, you can be apathetic. You can try and appease truth deniers. You can be afraid of what it really means. John gives you a fourth option, a fourth way to respond to the truth, and it's this: believe. That's the whole point of John's gospel. He tells us that in just a few verses. These things are written that you would believe, and believing you would have life everlasting in his name. You don't have to be apathetic or afraid. You don't have to cast it away. You can believe. And what are you going to believe? You're going to believe that Jesus knows you. You're going to believe that he's created you. You're going to believe that he's been with you your whole life. You're going to believe that he has charted a way for you to hear the good news and say yes to him. You're going to believe that he died on the cross in your place, that he rose again 3 days later, and believing you'll have life everlasting in his name. What are you going to do with the truth? Let's learn from Pilate and let's learn from John. Jesus said this in John 18:37. You read it just a little bit ago. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice. You've heard the same as Pilate. The question to us now, will you listen and will you believe?